Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. This week, I'm joined once again, making his return to the show, by our resident referee. It's Logan. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. I'm getting used to that title, you know, resident ref.
Yes.
There's something I quite like about it.
Good. Well, you might win something this year because the Fantasy Gaming League, the Grand Prix that you're entered in, is very close. I've done a little forecast earlier, and was it you that came out on top? I can't remember who it was now. If everything
I think by 3 or 4 points or something ridiculous.
Yeah, that was only a forecast, but it's very, very tight. I encourage those that are interested in seeing how it's going to head over to dimpdigital.com and then find in the Fantasy Gaming League tab, and you'll see a little update of that. But it's very close this year, which is good. Keeps people on their toes, excited. Transfer windows closing in a matter of days, so people are scrambling. We've had late delays to things like Battlefield, which has made Logan's arsehole a bit twitchy because that's one of his. You don't want that being knocked out till next year, exactly. So, yeah, we'll definitely be reporting in how that finishes up, but it's going to be a cracker heading into the final quarter of the year. So you're back again. Now,
I am. People
have been saying, right, he only comes on when it's Assassin's Creed. And I was like, well, that's fair enough. No one else is playing it out of the Dimp lot. Atkins has played the main game, but he gave up on the DLC, which, as we discussed at length, given how long that game is, that's probably a fair thing to do, to walk away from it. But today, I feel like we've got you to talk about some things that you're a specialist in. Not that you're a rookie when it comes to the Creed games, but when we're talking multiplayer, when we're talking competitive shooters, in the Dimp ranks, you're up there. One of the top boys. So we've got a little bit of chat and impressions coming out of that camp, which we don't often do. So I'm actually, for once, excited to talk about this. Normally it's just like, well, what can I get Adkins to talk about? And then make sure he doesn't blow it. But this is some new ground for me. But let's just kick things off because we always run out of time and these opening bits get too long. Call of Duty Vanguard. Beta. Yep. You've been involved in the beta. So before we get involved with Vanguard specifically, I want a quick, not full history lesson, but perhaps in the last 2-3 years, what your relationship has been with Call of Duty, because we cycle back to the very beginning of Dimp Digital when you was, right in amongst it then. Starting to tire, actually. I actually listened to one of the classic episodes and you could tell there the interest was waning, but we're now, 6 years removed from that. Is it still going strong? Have you been dipping in and out? Has things changed when it comes to your playing habits and Call of Duty?
Yeah. Yes and no, I think, is the answer in a weird kind of way. So I guess, I played a lot on the rebooted Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
I think, naturally always was going to enjoy that and played that a hell of a lot. I was a little bit late to the Warzone party. Because I was sort of a bit... Battle Royales weren't really my thing, should I say. I was a bit sort of like, I don't know. And obviously none of the other boys were really that into the Battle Royale element of it. So I was a bit not fussed about it. And it was actually my little brother that was playing it.
Right.
When we went into that lockdown stage and he wasn't really doing a lot. So I started playing with him and his mates. And I was like, this seems all right. And then obviously everyone else started picking it up.
Yeah.
And got into the Warzone hype pretty much, playing that towards the end of last year. And then they pretty much, in my opinion, broke that game with some of the meta changes and the introduction of the Black Ops guns. So I kind of stopped that then. But I bought Black Ops.
Okay.
And I played a little bit of it. I sort of started the campaign and I was like... But really, being truthful, I only bought that because it was like, what else am I going to do in lockdown?
Yeah.
That was because I watched a lot of the game when it got released, and I was a bit non-fussed by it. It looked a bit shit. Is the way I don't really like the graphics that Treyarch use, and the way that their art style isn't for me. I prefer the Activision one.
Mm.
And before that, I'd also played Sledgehammer's version of World War II as well. But
Yep.
again, I didn't really think too much of it. I wasn't enjoying it, so I didn't play it that much. And I also got that on PS4.
Right.
So I've played a little bit, dipped in and out, played a lot of Modern Warfare, not so much of Black Ops. Yeah, naturally for me, I've always been a bit of a fan of the World War II genre.
Mm-hmm.
I think, from my dipping in and out of Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5.
Or even going back to World at War.
And World at War. I played a fair bit of that game. I did enjoy it. I like the setting.
Yeah.
But, even despite that, World War II struggled to get me into it. And that was done by Sledgehammer. And then lo and behold, we've got Sledgehammer doing another World War II game. So hopes not particularly high, I think, is the way to phrase it. And I think it's fair to say I am a bit fatigued with Call of Duty. I don't feel like they bring it on enough. I don't really like this sort of trio of developers they've got that are jumping between it, releasing yearly games. I don't like the way that they're chucking everything into Warzone and trying to reintegrate the new Call of Duties and stuff. So
Yeah.
I've got a few complaints with it, but when they chuck out the chance for you to play the game, or at least the demo version of the game, really for nothing, and get a feel for it, it's still worth doing. To think, is this the sort of thing that I could pick up at some point and play, or not?
Yeah. Will this help ease any potential concerns? So we've got, as you rightly mentioned, Sledgehammer smashing this one out. They are being assisted by Treyarch, High Moon Studios, Beanox, and Raven Software, according to Wikipedia. You could look at that one or two ways. One, it's good they're getting the up. Two, have they blown it? But yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because obviously the yearly release for Call of Duty, and there are the trio of developers, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and Treyarch. And it's funny listening to people who are experienced with the franchise, who say, yeah, I don't like so and so's games, even though to me it's like a complete rookie outside. I'm like, it's fucking COD. But
Yeah.
you guys can pick up on what feels like a Sledgehammer game, what feels like a Treyarch game, what feels like an Infinity War game. And obviously Infinity War used to be the daddies before a load of them left to Respawn and gave us Titanfall. But I always find that aspect of it quite interesting.
You can tell, like, you can definitely tell, like, the Modern Warfare's graphics and the way the game looks is far superior to anything, in my opinion, that Sledgehammer or Treyarch chuck out. It just, for some reason, to me, is. But I think the lines are becoming less blurred because of the Warzone piece. You just mentioned there, Raven, who do Warzone,
Yeah.
are still involved in doing this game because obviously they've got to pour it all over. So I think the lines are becoming less blurred between them. But I just don't. I mean, I've felt for a long time anyway that these yearly release games are not adding much nowadays. And I think with this one especially, because I mean, you could argue a little bit with Black Ops before it, but they should be really developing this one for the new gen of consoles. So it's like when I boot that up, I expect to go, wow, like this. There's something different about this which jumps out at me as a next gen game, a next gen multiplayer, and I could easily, without getting too much into it, it just doesn't do that. You pick it up and it's like, what have you been, what are we working on? Like, largely the mechanics are the same. Everything is pretty much the same. I think my biggest complaint with a lot of Call of Duties now is they just feel like reskins. And obviously with World War II, it's always the same weapons that are there: the bar, the MP40, the Thompson, the Enfield, the Kar 98. Like, the weapon choice is just there. So it's like, what are we adding here then?
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably where I could get into some of the little differences that they're looking at introducing with Vanguard.
Yeah, so I mean, let's dive into this particular beta, and we may cycle back round to COD as we talk about some of the other franchises that are dropping FPSs this year, because it's going to be a busy time for those in that crowd. How much do you think you've played? What have you been playing on? And yeah, that's pretty much it. What those two questions is that you've spent a lot of time. Has it been on the Xbox? It ain't going to be on that laptop.
Nah. See, I think it's probably fair to say probably 5 to 6 hours, maybe even a little bit more on it. So yeah, I'm playing it on my Series X and with my Samsung G9 TV,
Yeah.
or monitor. So I'm getting the full benefit of the 120 FPS.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I guess the FPS piece is nice. You definitely notice that. So it's nice to have that enabled. But the game gives you 4 maps that are on cycle. And you can play a variety of modes. So they've given you a fair few. You can play Team Deathmatch, the Domination, Capture the Flag. All the modes are there. I mean, I have to be honest. I sat in Team Deathmatch when I was playing it because I was like, I can't be dealing with the other modes. Nowadays, when I jump on, I usually just jump on for some Team Deathmatch games anyway. I don't do any of the other two. It's too much going on for me.
Don't jump in free for all.
No, I've never done that anyway. I'd quite like at some point to go back to Search and Destroy. That's kind of a bit more tactical.
Headquarters, that was my one.
Yeah,
Has it been
that was a
or is
good
that
one.
still?
No, there's a couple of varieties of that. I can't think what the other variety is called now, but there's a slightly changed variety that was on Modern Warfare, and it's Hardpoint. That's it, where you have to capture it and stay on it to keep it. So it's a slightly varied version of it.
Headquarters.
But yeah, so there's all the standard game modes. Now the slight difference with this, with Vanguard, is that dependent on the size of the map, you can have up to 24 versus 24 players doing team deathmatch, and they call it different pacing. So some of the games will be a lot lower, with 6 players up to 8 to 10. Some depending on the size of the map, it changes, and I think you can select what pace you want to play at as well if you wanted to. But I just left that as all of them, just stick me in one. So yeah, like the bigger map.
That's a matchmaking option. You as a player say,
yeah,
I don't fancy like a hectic one. I could choose a slower pace, and it will put you in. In theory, it will put you in the game mode and a map that will suit that, rather than that'll be the priority basically.
So all those 4 maps, custom to playing at all. I think there's 3 or 4 different paces they call it. So that starts at the lowest.
Fuck me.
Yeah, the lowest of 6v6 up to, on the bigger maps, 24v24. So that's an interesting variation because 1 minute you'll be playing that map 8v8 and it will be a lot slower. Then the next 2 rounds time you could be playing it on 24 and 24 and it's just manic. I quite like the fact that they've added that because it varies how the map plays and where you will see people encounter people. So that's quite a nice little variation I think they've added from the bog standard, 6v6.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you play it, like you can tell the number of players is too many for that map.
Yeah.
Like, and it just gets out of hand. And you think this is just unplayable as a game mode. It's just like out of hand. But that's quite cool. And they've also introduced something called Champion Hill, which is kind of a 2v2. I think that when they originally released it, it was a 2v2 tournament style game mode where you start and you somehow earn cash, which then allows you to buy weapons and things, which is quite an interesting like little tournament mode. And then dependent on how you do, you get knocked out at certain rounds. So I didn't play that, but I watched a couple of streamers doing it and they seem to all enjoy it. I don't know if it's something that I'd particularly get involved in. But it's a nice little new game mode and way of playing Call of Duty, I think.
That sounds like something you want to play with someone your voice with, like a party. If it's a 2v2, like you don't want to be playing with Bill up the road who you don't speak to, or just some randomer from across the pond. That'll be just a disaster.
So they did have similar modes in Modern Warfare, and I think they added it into the playlist of Black Ops 4. But they had a similar kind of 2v2 small map, round-based game mode, which was quite cool. I can't think what it's called. Gunfight, I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing that actually and thinking that's like for proper pros.
Well, me and Hall did it a fair bit when it came out initially, and it
Yeah,
is good
proper
fun.
pros, not rookies like me squabbling around in
I,
there.
I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's for pros or anything like that. It's just an interesting, different way of playing, where it's smaller, sort of, you know, games. It's smaller maps. It's sometimes I think you could have random weapons as well. I think it was on random weapons, so that changes every round. It's just an interesting way of playing. So it's kind of an evolution of that into sort of another kind of tournament-based game mode. But interesting to see how that develops and whether it becomes something sort of more professional, sort of that they do with streamer tournaments and things like that. But I thought those were kind of two nice little additions in ways to vary the gameplay up.
What's your favourite pace out of question? Because it sounds like it's not the fastest paced
Yeah.
one because they slam too many people in. Is it a mixture between
Yeah.
like, the lowest and the medium one?
See, honestly, it depends on the map. So on the
Right.
24 versus 24 one, it's quite a big map with a lot of sight lines for sniping and things, which is nice. And I think one of my biggest complaints about Call of Duties of late is it seems to have always favoured aggressive up close play,
Get them
and it didn't
SMGs
really.
out and fucking butter them up and be done with them.
Yeah, like you watch a lot of the streamers that still stream and produce content on Modern Warfare, and they're literally like running shotguns, and it's just everything's like fast running at people, like one blast shotguns. And I never felt like it was really playing to more long range or sniped weapons. And that was my biggest complaint. So it's nice to see the maps cater in places for you to play a bit differently, I think.
Yeah.
But obviously, as the game develops and people get used to the guns and the gun balancing changes, I'm sure that will change as well. But yeah, I think largely sort of somewhere in the middle. Some of the maps are. The answer is it depends on the map. So
Yeah.
on the smaller maps, it just plays better with less people. It's less frantic and it's a bit more tactical. On the bigger maps, I think somewhere near sort of, I think it's 18 versus 18 on that big map where there's snipers is like a nice number.
Yeah.
But I suspect they'll probably refine the numbers a little bit based on feedback. But yeah, it's just a nice little way of varying up the map, the sight lines, and the amount of people you play if you want a quicker game.
Which is sounding quite positive to start with, but I suspect somewhere amongst all this positivity in options, there's going to be issues that you've got. So, what is it about Vanguard that perhaps isn't tickling your bollocks and making you think, well, this is going to be a banker when it releases in a month or so?
Yeah. So just quickly before I get into the negatives, I don't want it to sound like I'm absolutely kicking it, but
kick it. That's what we do.
I do have to say I like the way the maps play. I've enjoyed the maps, and the gunplay largely feels pretty good, and I think that's aided by the frame rate. I think that's nice. So I don't mind either of those two things. Now, I guess when we get into the negatives, this is purely on my perception. I don't.
Facts.
I'm starting. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to feel like the color palette of World War II isn't that engaging. I think it's just very bland. Like the guns are a bit bland. Like there's no. Well, we've played Call of Duty now for years with all these skins and bright colours and all this sort of stuff, different character skins going on. I'm sure they're going to add all that, but it's not there in the beta. So you've got this sort of bland kind of color palette, if you like, of map that you've got, and then coupled with the bland, it just feels just a bit boring. It looks dull, is how I'd describe it. And maybe that's a bit unfair to say because it's war's not bright and exciting. It is, it is what it is,
doesn't it?
But yeah, just when you're playing it, it's just kind of, even when the maps change, it's just kind of all a bit dull, I guess is the way I describe it. What else? So
winter's closing. You don't want to be playing dull toot whilst it's dark out there. And you're like, right, I haven't seen light of day. I'll put this on, and then grey mist comes out.
Yeah, so it's a bit unengaging to play. The one thing I was talking to Tim about, because he's been playing it a bit as well, and sometimes you feel like, when I said the gunplay's nice, and largely it is, I like the way it feels, but sometimes when you're shooting the guns, it's just like there's like smoke coming off the guns. There's like effects. It's like a bit too many visual effects on the gun. You just kind of feel like sometimes when you're aiming at people, it's a bit like hit and hope with the way the recoil works and stuff. You can't really see too much of what you're shooting at. And so part of that's down to the environmental stuff as well. Like sometimes in some of the buildings, there's one map called Hotel, and you're just when you go inside it, there's just stuff everywhere. Like it's just like your eyes are just like, what's all this? And then you're trying to spot people's heads. You're trying to do that through an iron sight on a gun that's bouncing around everywhere with smoke and bullets and stuff. It's just a bit chaotic, and I haven't really felt like that when I've played a Call of Duty game before, where I'm sort of just like, it's almost like I might as well close my eyes and hope for the best. So hopefully they tone all that stuff down. It feels a bit unathletic as well, I guess is how I'd describe it. So a lot of the guns feel a bit too bulky, and you don't really move. You don't really have the movement that you'd like a lot of the time. You feel slow and sluggish.
Well, they weren't athletes back in the day. They say the game of football's changed with all these athletes coming in, clean eating. Same with the soldiers, mate. They were eating baked beans back there and having a few pints.
There is that argument that it could perhaps be considered realistic. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt a little bit sluggish at times to play. And it's always the same. Like they give you attachments for weapons that improve weapon handling and stuff like that. So that might be something to do with it. But yeah, it just didn't feel that great. The weapon modification piece as well really bothered me. So you can have, I think there's like up to like 15 weapon slots, but there's so many weapon customizations. It just seems ludicrous for like it's like overwhelming, and it takes you so long to level up and unlock bits for the gun. It feels like unless they change that, you're really going to have to grind to unlock weapons, and that isn't ideal. So yeah, there's a fair few bits that are niggling away at me, but really what it boils down to is there's not a lot new. Like there's not a whole load of raft of changes, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, because arguably Call of Duty continues to be extremely successful. But yeah, I just don't know. I mean, Pete hates it. No one I've spoke to has said, do you know what, this feels like a good game that I'm willing to go back away from Warzone for to play multiplayer.
Yeah, that is always one of my questions that we'll get to. But it's funny though, isn't it? Because like again, outsider's view, I'm like, yeah, COD's the same every year, and then it's like, well, no, it's they've been doing this for 3 years. It will have its own take on it, but like you're suggesting here, it does it even though it's been sitting there for 2.5 years. I mean, it'll be 3 years by the time it comes out. It still will struggle to set itself apart from last year's entry. And maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe it is because more than ever now they've got this through line of Warzone that needs to be catered for. I'm assuming there's going to be crossover with Vanguard and Warzone. It would seem.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, they've already announced it. They've already done an event for it and everything. So, yeah, inevitably, and I think they're going to be releasing a new map for it as well. The new map for it will coincide with releasing the Vanguard weapons, no doubt, and things like that. But it'll be interesting to see how they phase. What do they do with Black Ops then? Does that just die? Do they keep Modern Warfare guns in there? And then all of a sudden you've got 3 games with weapons in there and stuff. There's a lot of questions there. I don't really understand how they're going to resolve it all. I mean, personally, I think they should have kept Warzone separate. It was part of Modern Warfare. Yeah. It's still extremely popular. Continue to evolve that. I don't see why the latest release. Well, I do see why the latest release has to be involved, but they're going to find it difficult. I think the biggest problem is rather than just creating a game on its own, they're now trying to create a game whilst also at the back trying to loop the story in and make it connected with Warzone.
Yeah,
and my mind is always on the basis, do they now see Warzone as the main money maker, really?
Is that the anchor games
now? Yeah. And then the games now fit into Warzone as opposed to the other way around.
They're like spin-offs of Warzone rather than their own entities and whatnot. Like I can't remember which one it was called, but there was the Call of Duty that went up into space with Jon Snow and Conor McGregor. I can't remember which one. I think Lewis Hamilton might have been in that one. Infinite War was it? I think it might have been called that.
Yeah, Infinite Warfare.
Like, could they even do something like that with the Warzone anchor there? Because it just feels so far away. I suppose the weapons and whatnot could transfer over, but
I think it was either Advanced Warfare or Infinite Warfare. I can't remember which one it was. I don't think I even had Infinite. I definitely had Advanced Warfare, and I hated that game.
That was all like the wall running and stuff. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were trying to jump off the hype of Titanfall with that. I think with the maneuverability of it and everything, and it just didn't resonate. It was too frantic and. It just wasn't a Call of Duty game at that point. But then there's me sitting here going, it ain't moving forward. They ain't doing anything different. And then when they do something different, I go, oh shit, it's not Call of Duty. So it's a difficult one. But I don't know. I mean, they've tried to do a few things. So in Vanguard, for example, there's a blind fire mode that comes up now. It's when you're behind cover at points, you can blind fire. But I haven't seen it to be better to do that than just poke my head up or try and
get the headshot.
Yeah, like everyone seems to be backing themselves for that. And one last thing before I forget.
Yep.
There's something that continues to be a problem for Call of Duty, and that is hackers.
Right.
I've been in multiple lobbies where they're still struggling, and I've just been it's just headshots galore. And you literally look at them, and it's like, this is blatant cheating because they don't care because it's a beta.
It can't be.
It's like, yeah. I'd literally earlier on today, I was just playing a few games after work, and you see it in the kill feed, and it's like headshot, and I'm thinking that looks weird. And then you get killed by one. You see the kill cam, and it's like that's just the most blatant. Like he's literally seen me through a wall, run round, and just popped straight onto the head.
Wow.
So they've got that issue now to deal with.
It's mad, isn't it? It's crazy that people can do that. Do you know if it's is it cross-platform enabled on the beta? Like, are you playing against PC, PlayStation, and Xbox folk? And I guess across 2 generations as well, potentially, because you'll have the PS4s, the Xbox Ones, PS5, Series X, and then Master Race sitting there on their throne with their 400 FPS going, come on then.
I don't know. I presume you can turn off crossplay.
Yeah,
it's
you
not
usually can.
I didn't check in the settings. You can definitely do it on Modern Warfare and Black Ops if you want to. So I imagine if it's not there in the beta, it will be there at live. But it's just, I feel sorry for the PC pool. Not really, but a little bit, in that they don't have a choice. Like, you're just, that's where all the hackers are going to be, and that's the problem you get. But I think, even when there's some like content creators that I follow that still produce Modern Warfare content, and they still come across hackers in that game.
Yeah.
And it's just rife in Call of Duty, and that's the problem Warzone's got. That's why a lot of people have stopped playing it. One of the reasons I've stopped playing it is because you spend 40 minutes trying to get to the final circle to get done by a cheater. It's just not. It's not satisfying. But to see people doing it in a beta is worrying.
Yeah,
a little bit.
It's not a good advert, is it? Like, hopefully maybe the reason they're getting in is so they can analyse how they're doing it and perhaps put up defences.
I wondered that.
But you don't know, do you? I mean, you're always at the mercy of these people. They'll find a way in if they want to. It's just whether they can be bothered and how popular the game is. If they want to hack it, they'll get in eventually. That's the way it's kind of always been. So where we if we're doing a temperature check for Vanguard in terms of like likeliness that you would take the plunge come, was it November? I think they're releasing that. Is it has it got a chance, or have they sort of dropped the ball a little bit here and actually it's going to be wait and see approach? Because if Warzone's not getting played, there's no reason to be getting this. It really, like, if you're not playing that, then even as a supplement just to get the guns or the progress or whatever you get for doing that, I don't quite understand it myself. That might not even be a reason to get it either.
Yeah, so I know a lot the other boys played Black Ops literally only to level weapons up, because you can just go into multiplayer and grinds to get the attachments.
And that will carry over to Warzone, would it?
Yeah, and that carries into Warzone. So the two games would be and will be linked. And yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I won't be pre-ordering it. I think because I know that there's Battlefield lurking, there's
Yep.
Halo lurking,
Yep.
um, and knowing that I can play Warzone for free anyway, it's kind of like I'm I'm not that fussed. I haven't really been playing a lot of multiplayer. I played a bit on Black Ops, but mainly just playing Nuketown, which is an original. I think it might be a Black Ops 2 map.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I wasn't even really playing the new content that they had out on Black Ops. So yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say. I think I've reasonably enjoyed playing Vanguard, if for just looking at something different
Yeah.
and sort of playing a different game with some different weapons, and it's got a different engine and stuff. So it's interesting to play it, and I've enjoyed playing the beta. It's got some problems. Um, I don't anticipate I'll be day one downloading that game. I've been more tempted by Battlefield and Halo than I have been by Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll wait and see. See what I quite often just wait for a bit, see what those content creators are chucking out, see what they're thinking. They're enjoying it and it looks good, then I might decide to get it. But
Not off the
not
bat.
at the moment. No.
How strange thing to ask, because it's always at least top one or two, worst case scenario three, top selling game of the year. But I mean, how relevant is the mainline Call of Duty nowadays that we have Warzone sitting there for anyone to just pick up and play? You don't even need Xbox Gold to play it. I think there's a mobile version on there. Like, the barrier is just completely removed. And if you want to jump in and not worry too much about progression, I could do that tonight and play and then walk away from it and get like a Call of Duty fix. Like, what's the relevance of these mainline ones now? Because it's not the campaign, is it? It never has been. I mean, for me, I'd play through those, but they are what they are. They're just a short experience. So with the Juggernaut and with free to play being like very, very highly utilised amongst all sorts of franchises, and we'll get to another one later that's utilising it. What are we doing with these main lines paying out 50 quid a year for? Should we be bothering?
Well, this is a difficulty, and I guess this is probably what they're looking at. I mean, I suspect there's still a large player base that enjoys and prefers competitive multiplayer, and I can understand that. And I think on the balance of the two, I still prefer competitive multiplayer over battle royale. But there's also a large people who don't, which I can understand as well. I think I'm surprised at the way they're still packaging it with a campaign and a backstory and a multiplayer. I feel like in a lot of ways that's a bit outdated. It's specifically for Call of Duty anyway. I feel bad because they go to all that effort of producing a campaign and putting time into building a storyline and things like that and building out characters. And probably 90% of people just play through it just for the sake of it at some point, if at all.
Yeah.
I think there's still a desire there for competitive multiplayer, but I'm surprised they still package it as this yearly game comprising of both. It doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's obviously disrupt. Well, Fortnite came along with PUBG, then Fortnite came along and disrupted things properly with how successful that got, being free to play battle royale, and then we've seen firms try it. Apex had a go at it with like a with Respawn doing that, and they're still going. And Warzone had a go at it, and after they really, to be honest, what's it called? Was it called Blackout? Their first go at it. That fell by the wayside after a year, and then they hit with Warzone. They seem to have got some traction there. Did you ever play Blackout?
I didn't, no.
Because that one you had to have the game. You had to, whatever year's game that was, it was bundled with that. And I think that's what they learnt was if you want to make this work, you've got Fortnite giving it away. So we're gonna have to give it away and monetize it with the usual suspects that we get in free to play.
Yeah, they changed it. I think one of the reasons Blackout died out is because they just didn't listen to the community. I know Dr. Disrespect, for example, as well, was extremely vocal. I mean, he's been playing battle royales, ever since they started coming out. And his biggest frustration throughout the whole thing was just not listening to the community for changes. And obviously, as new and shiny things come out, if you're fed up with what's out there already, then it's natural that people will move elsewhere and play other stuff. So yeah, I think it seems like Warzone's there to stay, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yep.
They're still ignoring the community by the sounds of it a large majority of the time, which is interesting. But they're sitting there making bundles of cash, so who can be criticised?
No, that's it. It's strange to see that transition for sure. So you mentioned that we've got Halo and Battlefield coming out this year. Let's start with Battlefield, just because I know that historically, I feel like you've always enjoyed Battlefield. They don't come out every year, so you get them every 2-3 years. And then we had the Battlefront games getting in the way that people either liked or didn't like. But we got Battlefield 2042, 19th of November release date at present. They have decided to bin off the campaign, so almost like what you was talking about earlier with why Call of Duty's still putting the effort in for that, yada yada yada. EA have gone, yeah, don't bother with that. Just get the multiplayer working. It obviously has been delayed at least once already, so that's a little bit sometimes concerning. But as we say, make sure it's ready. And it was only by a month or so. What's the temperature check here? Because for all intents and purposes, it's a modern warfare equivalent. Like it's 2042, but we're not going to be flying around in hovering cars and shit. It's going to be reasonably grounded with a few gadgets. It looks like to me. What we looking at here from your perspective?
Yeah, I've seen some of the gameplay footage they've released, and it looks interesting. I mean, I always feel like Battlefield doesn't, for some reason, play or appeal that well to the casuals. For some reason, and I hate using that term, but it's kind of true.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about it, but people just are never usually drawn to it. They just go to the standard Call of Duty games.
yeah.
But I think the maps look good. I always like the way Battlefield plays. I don't know whether it kind of harks back to, I wasn't always a console gamer. I played a fair few PC games, when I was a lot younger, and I played a fair bit of Battlefield, those large scale games on my dad's PC when I was a young boy. And I think I've always preferred that, like getting in vehicles and doing all that stuff. I feel like it caters better to different styles of gameplay and those larger scale battles. I just think that is, I just enjoy it. And I played a fair bit of Battlefield 4 with Hull. We enjoyed that. Obviously, I've jumped into Battlefield 5 a fair bit. Did Battlefield 1. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I think I'll definitely get it. I don't see myself not getting it. I don't, I think what got in my way for Battlefield 5 was Modern Warfare. I think those two come out in the same year. So I was instantly drawn to Modern Warfare over Battlefield 5. But I really enjoyed Battlefield 1. I thought it was a great, World War One game. Yeah, so I think it looks good. I like the way that they've structured. I don't know what they're called, heroes, but characters, as you say, with the different specialities and the gadgets they've got.
Yeah,
Look quite cool. And they've already had to change one. So one of them, I think, had a healing gun where you could shoot someone from distance and heal them from distance.
Yeah.
And I think throughout playtesting, they realised that was just super OP, that you could just have one of the characters like just behind a load of people, just shooting people from distance and reviving them and healing them. It's just ridiculous. They've slightly changed that to be, you have to be up close and personal to do it now. But yeah, I think going back to suiting different styles of gameplay, I think that's what Battlefield's always done well. It's like if you want to be an engineer, you get the perks of doing that. If you want to be a medic, assault, I think that's what I like about it, is that you can just change up your gameplay.
Yeah.
And I played Battlefield 5 relatively recently as well. And yeah, it's just a great game. The maps are always good. I really enjoy it. So yeah, hopefully this one doesn't let me down and come out later than anticipated.
No, it'd be a double disaster for you because, like we mentioned, it's in that fantasy gaming league, and you'd have the heartbreak of not playing it this year. So that's sounding like a little bit more of a positive direction. And obviously we've got Halo Infinite, which is dropping this year. That's late in the day, December, 8th? Yeah, December 8th. I wasn't sure it was going to make this year, but it seems like someone said just make sure it comes out this year.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Like, December's never a month you're going to be picking Like you just, unfortunately, that's what can happen. Where are we sitting out on this one? Because there's some big changes happening. In fact, the multiplayer, although it's releasing in the same day, they're doing the multiplayer and the campaign is released on the same day. The multiplayer component of Infinite will be free to play, so you ain't got to dabble with the campaign if you don't want to. So if it's far away to you normally, you can just bin it, jump straight in, and you signed up yourself to the in-flight tests, which I think are ending as this airs. By the time the timing done, so maybe we'll have you back shortly to talk about that if you got any playtime in. But I sent you off on a little research about the challenges and the progression battle passes, because I don't know what they're saying. I hear people aren't overly thrilled with the idea that progression is exclusively tied to challenges within the battle pass, so not just game for game XP, which my understanding is in most games you have that option, and the challenges subsidise that. But during your days off on researching how this is structured, and we haven't got any hands-on impressions just yet, what are they playing at here?
Yeah, I genuinely don't understand the reason for doing it. Like from a purely gameplay perspective, there's something satisfying about going, I killed that person. You're not thinking it specifically, but if you get 10 kills in that game, you might get 100 XP for each. You get 1,000 XP in the bag.
Yeah.
Like everything you do in a first-person shooter contributes to your progression, whatever that is, whether it's leveling a gun up, getting attachments, leveling battle pass, whatever it is, you know that's doing something. To theoretically know that you could go into a game, play a game for 15 minutes, get 40 kills, have an amazing game, and it not contribute to anything really, if you don't have any specific challenges for that, seems really peculiar. I don't understand from a purely multiplayer perspective how that is a beneficial change. I mean, obviously, it was Fortnite that introduced this whole battle pass thing phenomena, and they had huge success with it. So naturally, everyone's going to go, we want a piece of that pie and use that model, which is fine.
It used to annoy me though, because you jump in a game, and then silly bastards that had the battle pass would be like, I've just got to go and mine this tree. I'm like, fucking play the game here. We're trying to win as a squad. He's like, yeah, but for the battle pass, I need to do this. And I was like, why aren't these aligned towards winning the fucking match first?
Yeah, there was a load, especially in Fortnite, where it'd be like, go and collect this at a certain point, or go and dance on a building.
So everyone would go there, and there'd be a fucking ruckus for nothing.
Yeah, and you'd think, I don't even want this hassle. I just want to go and dance in this building. Like, and that was my big frustration with the Battle Pass, was that it's like, okay, you're making the challenge easy for me to achieve, but to your point, it's not forming part of the core gameplay of Fortnite. So if some of the challenges were like landing, Greasy Grove, fine. Like I can do that. That is part of why I'm doing it. Although it's changing what I'm doing, it's and I think it's kind of good because it gets people to visit different areas of the map, and it mixes things up. So it's fine from that perspective. But to your point, if the challenges, and by reading what they said in that article from some of the research, it does look like they're going to make them, at least on the earlier stages of the challenges, the weekly challenges, easy to do. So it'll be like play a game, or it'll be, which is fine. But it's when it starts getting to pick up a sniper and get 20 headshots. Yeah. It's like, well, then you've got to go out your way to pick up the sniper, which everyone, or a large majority of other players, are going to be also going for in the game. Yeah. And then once you've got it, you've got to try and get headshots. And trust me, it's the most frustrating thing in the world when you're trying to do a challenge and you can't do it. So I think that is my concern, is that it forces you, because even when there's a battle pass and the challenges, you can ignore the challenges if you think, I can't be asked to do that, or that sounds like that's not what I want to do today. You can still jump on, play some games and get rewarded for it and make progress. Whereas in Halo, you won't be able to do that. You're literally, if you don't do the challenges and you want to move up the battle pass, you can't. That's the simple fact of it. And it's just concerning to me that they're saying there's no other way of doing it. But if you don't like the challenges, you can buy some skip tokens in our store, and you can swap out the challenges for something you would prefer.
Yeah.
That to me sounds like, if they're giving away a game for nothing, they have to figure out a way to make their money back, and that's the way they're going to do it. Personally, if you're going to give it away for nothing, fine, give me a battle pass. I've said to you before that I think the Fortnite battle pass, maybe even the Rocket League battle pass might do it. I can't remember. And the Call of Duty battle passes all give you enough credits through the battle pass, then buy the next seasons. So you're not committed to paying 8, 12, whatever it is, pound every month, or how often it is, every 2 months it resets.
You put the work in, you can partake.
You get the rewards.
Yeah.
If you don't, for whatever reason, then you have to buy it again. Fine. Yeah. Like, at least you know that if you're going to play it regularly, you won't then have to keep on buying that pass every season, which I like.
How are they making money then? Why aren't people just doing that? What are people
cosmetics
paying?
So this is what they chuck out. So there's an item store, and obviously Fortnite did it really well with the dances, the skins, and everything, and they literally charge you through the nose.
They had all the fucking characters from films and Marvel. Yeah, it was all there to me.
So, that's there. Look at Valorant. I think I spoke to Hor about Valorant and Lappa, and some of the skins in that I've heard are just out of this world expensive, like more expensive than buying a game for buying a skin. And that's their prerogative, right? It's there if you want it.
Valorant is disgusting, Lappa just said in the chat.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where if you play it enough, you'll probably be inclined to pay the money because you're sitting there doing it. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of not being able to progress through that pass. And even if you can get enough credits to buy the next one, you're still bound to these shit challenges to be able to do it. And there's no two ways about it. Fortnite had it.
Yeah.
Every game, even Call of Duty at the moment, has got challenges, weekly, daily ones.
Yeah.
Some of them are shit, real pain in the arse to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my fear, is that they go down a route where, I think in the article it said they reckon it's about 16 to 18 hours for you to complete that weekly challenge tier. And the first thing I thought to myself was, I ain't going to do that in 16 to 18 hours.
No.
Like, if you do everything as you should do, I suspect that's how long it'd take. But realistically, it's going to probably take more than that.
Yeah.
And that's like 3 hours a night. So it's literally going to have to be the only game you play.
If you want to tick it all off.
Pretty much, if you want to tick it all off. So, yeah.
It's a tough balance, isn't it? Because you want it to be enough that people don't blow through it in one night. But also, it needs to be achievable, so people think, it's worth me putting the time in for most of this week to do it. Like, it's not easy to try and do that.
No, but I don't know why. I don't know why they've erased almost, or just gone, all this stuff that we've been doing for 20 years or longer. No, we won't do this XP. Just for playing. We'll just go challenges or nothing. I don't understand that. No one's ever thought that this XP during the game for kills,
a waste.
For partaking, was a waste or wrong. Like, it's been established. It's accepted that that's a good way of doing it. I don't really see how taking that away is making it better for the gamer.
No. Well, so some people are speculating that eventually that XP will come, but they just haven't got it ready for launch, or they don't want to put it in for launch, whether to try and monetize the fuck out of it early doors or what. But the speculation is, and again, we don't know because they don't tell us these things, and it's just one of the devs posted a tweet saying there won't be any match-to-match XP at launch. That was the wording. So people are like, maybe it's something they're playing later on down the line. So it could come later on. But if that's the case...
It's weird though, isn't it? That's just weird.
It is weird.
How can you have a game that's ready to release, and they go, but we haven't added, in-game match XP?
Well, they ain't adding that co-op campaign to the campaign. That's gone. Forge is gone. So... the pattern I'm seeing, if that's true, that the XP should be there and isn't, is that someone's gone, this is coming out, as we mentioned, December. Not ideal, really, but that's what it is. You get it out in 2021, hook or by crook. If you cut things, you cut things. And it's starting to feel a little bit like that. I could be completely wrong, but the fact the campaign's not going to have co-op campaign for the first time ever is a signal that at least that side of things... is not ready, and perhaps even some of the multiplayer stuff they want to do isn't ready to go as they would want it.
I've been wondering.
What's Phil doing?
Well,
the Game Pass revolution. This garbage is going on. It should be easy street, shouldn't it? It should be come out when it's ready, because it don't fucking matter for the sales, because you ain't going to sell fuck all anyway.
I think it's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, you've been there at work where they go, get it done.
You're like, well, it's going to be shit.
You told me to do it. I told you it'd be shit, and you didn't care. But I wonder, it's all gone very quiet with the Battle Royale side.
Yeah.
And somehow I wonder whether having challenges and doing this kind of stuff somehow is linked in with what they were doing for the Battle Royale, if the Battle Royale's there. I don't know if they've confirmed too much about it. I haven't read much. No one's really been talking about it lately. So it feels like it's
feet up.
Well, it's concerning, isn't it? The whole thing's a bit of a concern.
Yeah. I still think it'll be...
Going, oh.
Well, the thing is, because even if it wasn't... The thing is, I don't know why they've made it free to play. It should have been, if you got Game Pass, you get it. Like, if that's Phil's fucking logic on, I don't really want to sell games or Xbox, I want you to pay like Netflix a subscription, you chuck all of Halo behind that and say, go on, £10 a month, and most people will pay it. But the trouble is, there's that whale, isn't there? If you hit a big free to play like Fortnite, Warzone, Apex, where it's just sustains itself, you've got money coming in for years that you just put feet up on and chuck pretty light content out. It's not like parts of Destiny where we've had poor Dave having a meltdown because they've fucking blown away or done feature creeps that he's not happy with, weapon creeping, and they have to like re-gut it and do it again. Like, they could just, for low effort, make a lot of money out of it. But
I mean, from a pure gamer perspective,
it ain't ideal.
There's nothing that, well, it ain't ideal, but free-to-play games where the only cost is if you want to foot the bill for some cosmetics, ain't a bad deal.
No,
on the face of it.
Correct. If the game's really fun to play, like, it's what I think it's going to be huge, Infinite. If it works at launch, because another thing that 343 haven't had a great record with is their multiplayer stuff, especially with the Master Chief Collection. That didn't work for about 5 years. So if it works out of the gate, like the feedback from hands-on has all been positive. Like, it plays great. I just can't see how people won't dive into this and just be like, it's Halo multiplayer. Yeah,
it's not going to be like broken. It's not going to be awful. Everyone knows what they're going to get from it. We hope it's not broken, but it should be really big. And I can understand why Phil wants a piece of that pie. I think that makes sense. You know, they're looking at the success of Fortnite, the success of Warzone, and they're thinking, we've got this really big IP here.
Yeah, you look at 4 and 5 and go, that weren't exactly a resounding success, so why not rip the book up and try something different?
So it makes sense in a lot of ways. I just think, for some reason, the big talking point appears to be around this multiplayer XP piece.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they've got the focus over there. Maybe because it takes off the focus of all the other shit they're not delivering and how late it is and various other things. But it's a weird way to say at launch. It's like, well, you doing it or not? And they go, well, we're not doing it at launch. You go, well, what does that mean? Why are you talking to me in riddles?
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, I think ultimately it looks like they're giving away a lot of cosmetic stuff. They're going to do a lot of events. It looks like they've got a decent amount of content planned for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a concern about how much you basically have to grind these challenges.
Yeah, and how achievable they are without having to go play silly buggers and like basically throw the game so that you can get your challenges. It depends how out there they are. They make them sensible, like...
I think they'll be sensible, but I think they'll still be hard. I think it's going to be a lot of these get headshots, use this gun, play this game mode, get 3 headshots in a row without dying, all that sort of
kill streaks.
Like all that sort of stuff, and it's just going to be irritating when you get to that point, and then you play a whole game. You might even play 3 games where you tick off no challenges and get nothing for it. And I think once people start doing that, I think that's when...
wouldn't you? But I'm done for the night, or the next night as well. You'd be like, I'm done.
Even if you're not... But the good thing about XP in multiplayer is that even if you play generally a shit game...
Paper can go on that and earn something. And he's poor. He can't even get a kill. He can't even shoot straight.
Well, whatever you do, whether you've had a good game or bad game, whether you're tired, whether you want to play casual, you want to play more serious, you get something for it. I think that's the concern for me is that you could arguably in the later stages of it play a lot of games and get very little reward. And I just think for why 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 change that scheme? But we'll have to wait and see.
We
I could
will.
be eating my words.
One thing I wanted to mention actually, and just get your view on, was around the way they're structuring their battle passes. In that, it typically battle pass in November comes along. They have a theme. You know, it's Halo 1. You know, we're going to go back 20 years, Halo 1 theme, Master Chief, all that shit. You get all the cosmetics related to that game. December, they have a Destiny crossover, which is a rumour that might be happening at some point in the, you know, either at launch or later on. January, you get this. But my understanding is in most battle passes, unless you're there during that month, you can't go back 3 months and go, oh, I'll play the Halo 1 stuff because it's a timed kind of conveyor belt. With Infinite, they're saying you could go back and you could purchase the battle pass from 6 months ago and earn, if there's a particular cosmetic or reward or whatever you want from that one, you can go ahead and do that. What do you think of that? Because that feels like a bit of a nicer approach as opposed to saying, make sure you're here every month, otherwise you're going to miss out on this fucking quality item that we've got waiting for you.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought that was a good addition because there's been some seasons when I played Fortnite and obviously when I've played Call of Duty that I've missed out on because I think I'm done with it, feet up now for a month. And you go back and someone's got a gun or some camo and you think, I like that. I wish I had that. And there's no way to go back and get it. It's like you had your chance, unless it crops up in a pack or in the store and you have to remortgage your house to buy it.
Yeah.
You got no chance. So I thought that was a nice little touch. They did say there is still going to be some limited time events, which is like you take, if you're there, you get it. If you're not, you don't.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. But I think, for the battle pass content, it's good for it's good for us, the gamers, because if we don't pick it up day one because it's broken, we can still 3, 4, 5 months later go and still get those cosmetics if we want to. You've obviously got to pay for the pass, so if there's a pass per month, then you don't pick it up for 4 months and it's £8 a pass or whatever, then you're losing out on 36 quid. No, 32.
Well,
yeah.
Don't ask me to correct maths, I won't.
Well, I know that Hall will be there in chat going, oh, it's got it wrong.
Top 3% of maths I was.
Yeah. So I think that's a good thing. I liked that they're doing that. And as I say, it sounds like they've got a reasonable amount of content planned, which I like. But as I said before, I don't dislike the Battle Pass model. It's just how achievable it is to get the stuff, how much XP you get, and how much do I have to grind that Battle Pass to finish it before you reset it. Like Rocket Leagues, for example, is done in a way that it's pretty easy to get that every month or every period. I think they run that every 3 months. It's pretty easy to get all the rewards in the past before it moves on to the next one. Call of Duty, if you play a lot of Warzone, you're going to do it. If you play a lot of multiplayer, it's a little bit longer to get it, which is interesting. But generally, they still give you, if you play enough, again, you've got enough time. But I still find that a little bit tough. So it'll be interesting to see how long the pass runs, whether they give you credits to get the next one if you complete the pass, and all that kind of good stuff. But I think generally, giving it out there to the masses and saying, here's a top selling IP for nothing. Have a little go at the multiplayer if you want. And if you want these cosmetics, they're over here. I think that's not a bad little model.
No, could make them absolute fortunes. Right. I want you to rank your interest levels for Vanguard, Battlefield, and Halo, 1 to 3. If we're asking you as we record this, what's top of the grid, and what's middle, and what's bottom of the grid?
So bottom of the grid will be Vanguard.
He's had hands on with that as well.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. I think once you've played it,
once you sampled it.
I mean, once you sampled it, it takes away a bit of the hype. Saying that though, when I played the Halo 5 beta, I couldn't have been more excited for that game. So it can work both ways. But yeah, I haven't been that enthused by the Vanguard one, despite being in my favourite World War II setting. So yeah, I think that goes in at 3, and then it's 4. I think I'm more likely to play a lot of Battlefield as opposed to Halo.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say that Halo goes in second, and then Battlefield at top. But I think it's not that. It's quite tight because I've played Vanguard and it wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. Halo, there's a lot of question marks about it, and Battlefield again, it's been delayed. It's so there's not really one clear cut front runner for buzz of the year.
Yeah.
I think it's more a case of who blows it, who's it's like who's just the worst of the bunch. And at the moment, unfortunately, it's Vanguard.
Is there a chance that we check in with you early next year to talk about another first-person shooter episode, and all 3 of them have been purchased or played at some point?
Everything's possible. Everything's possible. I mean, I don't rule it out. I mean, I don't see a world in which I don't play Halo purely because it's free anyway. I mean, I'm going to play that, so
it's going to be tried, isn't it? People are going to sample it, and then minimum.
Yeah. Right. And I've always enjoyed playing Halo. It's weird. People are usually one or the other. They're either a Call of Duty or a Halo player. I'm predominantly Call of Duty, but I also really enjoy the mechanics of Halo, which I think is relatively unusual.
So like Battlefield, it sits in between them and goes, right, have a go at this.
I mean, generally, give me a gun and I'll shoot it. I think that's what I've always said. I don't have any real huge preference about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting to buy Battlefield unless for some reason there's something that really just makes me not. But I've bought everyone since I even had Battlefield 3. I had Battlefield Hardline. I will buy that.
Yeah.
The question is, will I end up buying Vanguard or not? And at the moment, the answer is no.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep people posted. Keep them on tenterhooks. They're going to be interested. Don't get a lot of multiplayer competitive first-person chat, so it's always appreciated to get your view because you kind of know what you're chatting about, whereas me and Adkins are speculating about things that we don't even play. We're like, well, sounds like it's all right, but it's not until you speak to someone who's like, no, that's a real shit idea, and you're like, well, it sounded right to me. But I think we're going to call it to a close. We had other items on the docket, but we'll do it another time. We won't overextend you. You get tired easy, so once sort of Logan's hours up, his mind wanders. You lose a bit of quality, but we'll be back with you to chat about. Well, if you get to play, the Halo in-flight kind of test type thing is happening as we speak. It may have just finished. Depends when you're listening to this, but it's happening. If you manage to get hands on with that, I've seen the times. It's open at certain times competitively, which aren't too kind to UK players, but maybe we'll get you on to chat about that, plus the other items we have, because we want you to cover Battlefield and COD at that point. It'll just be a focus on how Halo's playing. But yeah, I think I'll let you off the hook for this week. That's it.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Right. Those of you listening, if you've made it this far, obviously thank you, because there's a lot of waffle going on. Logan loves the sound of his own voice. It's hard to keep him on it. We had 3 items. We got through 1 really. Like the first person shooter thing was supposed to be 1 item, but I got engrossed in the conversation. I found it really interesting because we've got those 3 all coming this year. It doesn't always happen like that. Like last time I remember it being like this is when they had Battlefield, Call of Duty, and Titanfall 2. And Titanfall 2 got fucking crapped on because it got released like in between Battlefield and COD, like sandwiched between them. And
that was
sales.
Such a poor release.
I know. And EA publish it. Why they've got Battlefield to be prats. I think we actually spoke about it on the podcast ad nauseum when that happened. So find that in the archives. But thanks for listening. If you want to chuck us some tips or any money or financially support us, you can do patreon.com/Dimp Digital, where you can join the core community, £2.50. or convert it to your local rate, as Patreon now do that. If you got Twitch and you got Amazon Prime, you can link those 2 accounts up and you can subscribe to twitch.tv/Dimp Digital for free and get us half a beer out of that. So You have to keep re-upping it each month, but it's free to you. Just one click of a button. So head over to twitch.tv/Dimp Digital if you want to do that. And as we always say, if you can't be bothered, don't want to, or ain't got the money, that's fine. Just having you here sort of over an hour in, still listening to this waffle of me stretching it out is enough for me. So we thank you for that. Anyway, nothing more for us to say here other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.